Thank you very much.
We got a special delivery. What we got going there, Jack?
What, some McDangles, bro?
Is
What
that a
is
little
that?
bagel? What we got?
Little breakfast.
Listeners, Jack
little
just
breakfast tacos, boys.
There we go.
No. Well, first of all, what is in a breakfast taco? Obviously, some scrambled.
This is some trunk taco. Look at that.
Bacon.
He's going to eat on mic as well. I love it.
Bacon, egg, and cheese.
There
we go.
Taco?
Do you know about that?
So what? You just swap out the
you never had a breakfast taco, bro?
Or I haven't had a breakfast. Actually, no, that's not true. I've had a breakfast burrito at McDonald's. Yeah,
you're still living in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so Canada don't get. Listen,
Meat and
the Canadian
potatoes.
economy not doing so hot. We should actually do a Canada, sort of rip Canada a new one episode because
the public sector doesn't make breakfast burritos, boys, and that's the only people working in Canada.
Just government cheese.
Government
sprinkled on top. All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. It's the 3-year anniversary, boys. We finally made it here. 3 years today we started this podcast. How you feeling, fellas? Jack, also, we got to shout out the merch. Looking clean today. You got what is that, by the way, Jack?
This is a limited edition.
Exclusive.
You can't buy this, boys. It's secondary markets only. This is a VV, Pudgy Penguins, Opepeng hoodie. And let me do this little spin.
How many of those have been made?
Oh, shit. Wait, that's actually sick. I didn't even know that was on the back.
Yellow,
beautiful,
pink, white, and black. Little ice cream colors.
Love ice cream colors. Killing it. Love that. All right. Trung, what's going on, mate? We got lots to talk about. How are you feeling 3 years in? We're going to do a little AMA stuff, but
you guys ever see that meme of Kobe on the sideline while his team's celebrating and Kobe's just stone cold face, just like he's like, I'm not celebrating. Like, this ain't no ring. It's like this, bro. Like, what is this? What are we celebrating? It's like the Jack chart. What are we celebrating, boys?
By the way, do you know what's terrible? When you said Kobe, I know you're talking about Kobe Bryant, but for some reason I thought of Kobe, the legendary crypto trader / Twitter personality before, which is terrible because Kobe Bryant is obviously the GOAT.
Well, maybe a little bit different. Well, here, hold on a second. Well, can you tee people up?
There we go.
What do we got going this week? Because we got to get it. I got 5.
Yeah, let's get it going. We're going to talk a little bit about the halvening in a couple of days. Very quickly, there's some funny headlines coming out of Europe, as you'd expect. Then we got an MKBHD review of the Humane, was it an AI chip thing?
AI pin,
sorry. So we're going to talk a bit about that. More so about the role of people doing reviews. And obviously MKBHD is a legend, but we want to talk a bit about that. Less so about Humane, I think, because we've talked about in the past.
We talked about the pin.
Launched.
We can just bring up why he made some valid points. But anyways, let's do that.
And then we'll talk about Airchat. You've probably seen it all over the Twitter feeds. Jack's been heavy on it. And for people who don't know, it's the latest social network, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Audio social network.
Audio. Think of it as Twitter, but with voice notes. So it transcribes what you say, and people. It's a really cool experience. I've been using it in the last week as well. Jack's the OG of it, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then Trung is going to do a parent corner about Bluey. Have absolutely no idea.
Jack, do you watch Bluey?
No. Mate, we don't have we don't watch TV. Our kids don't watch TV.
Can I? At the end of this, do you have Disney Plus?
Nope.
Celia,
I'm not exaggerating when I say the kids do not watch TV.
Celia, I know you're listening to this. Go watch Bluey. This is not just like, this is like, this is art.
It's not going to work.
Jack
Bluey
is like,
art.
has no idea what Trunk's talking about. But we'll talk about it. I know Trunk wrote about it in his newsletter as well. And then we'll see with timing. There were a few AMA questions from the Telegram group. We'll see. We'll try our best to answer a few of those as well at the end.
No, we will. We're going to answer some, but hold on.
Yeah.
I got meme of the week here.
Go on.
Friend of the pod,
share your screen.
Soren Iverson, who has been on a heater, by the way. Every single thing that Soren puts up now, I guess 20 million views or 10 million. This one killed me. For the listeners,
that's good.
Soren, our friend, the fellow designer like Jack, he makes fake product features. We had him on last summer. Thank you, Soren, for coming. This one is called Netflix. Skip the foreplay feature, removes naughty scenes to make family movie night less awkward. And then he shows this feature, and I mean, he's such a good designer that it looks like a Netflix thumbnail, and then it lets you skip any sex scenes. And this thing went nuclear. And I will tell you, from my own random life, I used to rent movies from Blockbuster and rewatch them for family, but we rented like Pulp Fiction and like Basic Instinct, which is like not family meant to be watched family friendly. So when I saw this instant retweet, it was just too real. But that shout out meme of the week.
Man, you need that in a Pakistani household. The amount of times people be drawing for that remote control. Jack, have you seen Goodness Gracious Me? I think we've talked about it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Classic British comedy on the BBC. It was the first time brown people were kind of on the BBC. Like it was a comedy skits, and they had this amazing like kind of skit where it was about they would always say this dial is very nice. So like you're watching TV, something comes on TV, you have to change the subject. But that is a brilliant piece of design work from Soren. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, boys, should we get into it then? Jack, you talked about the halvening is in a couple days, the Bitcoin halvening. We don't have to talk too much about what it necessarily means, but how's it been in that world for you? You're obviously following it very closely. In the last few days, we've seen a bit of a pullback with price action. And obviously there was rumors of war last week, or maybe not rumors, maybe that's the wrong word. There was escalations in the Middle East and things going on. There's obviously been an ongoing war for a while already. But it seemed like that had an impact on the crypto markets because they're open on the weekends, whereas the regular stock market isn't. Anything on the halvening you want to talk about?
Mate, just some funny, the most notable stuff is this funny headline, like misprints of headlines in European press mostly, where people are writing like Bitcoin price is going to be cut in half.
That's so good.
Wait, why is it like, what is going on? Why are they doing it so incorrectly? Can you explain that? What am I missing?
Or correctly, depending on we're going to find out. We'll
find out. But
no, they might be the most accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's technically happening is the issuance of Bitcoin is being cut in half. So on every block, the amount of Bitcoin issued to miners is being cut in half again, from 6.25 to 3.125 Bitcoin per block. And just the interpretation of that, like it's gotten this name of the this like colloquial, the halvening, because the supply every 4 years cuts in that via that rule. And people, I just extrapolate, I guess, wrong headlines from that. Prices being in half. Yeah. Someone said the supply of Bitcoin is going to double. People say like the price is going to double. Just like completely ridiculous interpretations of a very specific technical thing that's occurring, which historically has played out as like, thank you very much, not like a straight like price catalyst.
We got a special delivery. What we got going there, Jack?
What, some McDangles, bro?
Is that a little bagel? What we got?
Little breakfast.
Listeners, Jack
little breakfast tacos, boys.
There we go.
No. Well, first of all, what is in a breakfast taco? Obviously some scrambled.
This is some trunk taco. Look at that. Bacon. He's going to eat on mic as well. I love it.
Bacon, egg, and cheese.
There we go. Taco?
You know about that?
So what, you just swap out the
you never had a breakfast taco, bro?
I haven't had a breakfast. Actually, no, that's not true. I've had a breakfast burrito at McDonald's. Yeah.
You're still living in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. So Canada don't get. Listen, Canadian economy not doing so hot. We should actually do a Canada, sort of rip Canada a new one episode, because
they don't make the public. The public sector doesn't make breakfast burritos, boys, and that's the only people working in Canada.
I don't know if you guys saw that viral chart.
It's sprinkled on top. Beautiful. Is this a real fit? We're going to have to do this another time. Well, I'm going to get off topic. But the government cheese story, that is a Trung fan thread for sure. Have you ever done one on government cheese, what it is? And the history of it,
no idea government cheese.
Oh, okay. We're going to have to talk about that another time. Let's keep on it. So, Jack, the summary is they couldn't even Google. I literally typed in what is the halvening, and the first result tells you what it is. Pretty incredible. So that's going on there. Jack's going to eat his burrito.
No, but I like how Bilal said that. I'm like, how did he get this headline wrong? And Bilal's like, well, actually, the price happening, it might be right.
That's true. I mean, they could just be seeing the future.
Historically, though, this has been a milestone for along the price appreciation. You want to like do the zoom out thing. People speculate that it's a catalyst for price appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, the whole narrative has been based on this. Yeah.
Like, this is the unfuckwithable monetary policy of Bitcoin in action, boys. There we go.
All right. So look out for that. It was supposed to be 420, no?
Yeah, but I think it's going to, well, it depends where you live, right? But in the US, I think at Eastern time, it's going to be the 19th.
19th. Okay, they just got to delay it one day, you know? Yeah, but anyway, all right, let's...
Simulation, boys. That is funnier outcome in a lot of ways.
That's true.
Just misses it by a couple hours.
Actually miss it by a few hours, yeah. All right, Trung, you want to talk about MKBHD reviewing the Humane pin. Let's remind people what the Humane pin was. We talked about it briefly on the pod in the past, but more so the significance of MKBHD. He's basically the #1 YouTuber for tech reviews. Was it 20? How many followers has he got? 20, 30
19 million followers. Dude,
Marcus
he's the
Brownlee.
GOAT. He is the most powerful person in for technology product reviews. There's no question.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like so I go to his stuff anytime I'm buying a laptop, phone, anything. Like I have to check his stuff
He's
out.
goated, right? It's just the best. So for people that didn't see it, that aren't on X, well, good for your brain. It's probably not melting every single day. But it went super viral. You guys probably saw this tweet from Daniel Vassallo, right? So Daniel wrote, for people who don't know, MKBHD Marcus Brownlee put out a review of this AI pin. So AI pin, I'm holding up a AirPod case here. It's about the size of an AirPod case. And the idea is that you stick it onto your chest. And it's meant to be a substitute for a smartphone. You know, the thesis being, can we get people using their phone less? Here's a device that's going to use AI. For the demos that we talked about, and people may have seen, is you put this device on your chest, and if you want to use it, you basically, hold the device, and then you can do AI-related things. Full disclosure is Bilal's friend, his uncle, is the founder of this company. Legend at Apple.
Apple guy. Imran
Just name
Chowdhury.
call it. Yeah, he's a legend.
My
him
friend
and his partner,
Asif, aka Carlos, we call him. But
his partner, him and his partner co-founded Humane 5 years ago. And listen, they got insane chops, right? They raised over $250 million. And Imran literally was on one of the 5 to 10 main people on the iPhone team. I mean, we talked about it in that previous episode. It's worth recalling. He was part of a duo known as the Lennon and McCartney of design. Like, they were intimately involved with the creation of the iPhone. Having said that, they spent 5 years, released this AI pin. And the pin does stuff that you'd want and you'd see on, Star Trek. They got the pin on Star Trek, does everything, right? Ask it questions. It takes videos of everything for you. It's supposed to be a full-on AI assistant. That's the thesis. Looks like the product came off embargo.
Like a phone.
Kind of like a phone.
Kind of like a phone pinned to your body.
Exactly, but without the screen. It's getting, it projects
less of an interface.
This graphic, this digital ink onto your hand. Trying to get people off the phone, which we've talked about. That's the product. It was been on embargo for a bunch of reviewers. Now, a little context. Before MKBHD dropped his review on Sunday, and his review, I'm not going to bury the lead here anymore. It's titled, "The Worst Product I've Ever Reviewed, ... for now."
I mean, that's wild. And that was a thumbnail, right? Specifically.
That's a thumbnail. Rafa, please put that up. Thank you to super producer Rafa. He'll put the thumbnail up. It is a pretty, I'm going to ask you guys right now. When you saw that thumbnail, Jack, did you see that? I'll ask Bilal. Jack, you saw it? Bilal, what did you think? What was your gut reaction?
I mean, I'm like, I want to click on this to see what he's talking about because it worked. The clickbait worked. So that's how I felt. I mean, no, obviously I was like, it's pretty inflammatory, but understandable. And it's not really his style, right? Like, he's not like the clickbaity, like got you sort of person. He's a pretty fair reviewer. So that's also the context I have that's my perception of him. So it was quite significant.
Okay. I want to address you after I ask Jack. Jack, do you see this thumbnail?
Uh-huh.
What were your thoughts? You're a design guy.
Well, the last thing, didn't he trash a car a month ago or something?
Okay, well, so tell me about
content pivot, maybe. Like,
okay,
you saw maybe
Mr. Beastification of MKBHD.
Yeah.
Sounds
yeah. I just tweeted this out before the episode, boy. Before I even knew we were going to be talking about this. Show me the bait, and I'll show you the engagement.
That's brilliant. Okay, beautiful. That's beautiful.
Okay, but hold on. Now I want to get to this. So are you guys calling this clickbait? Are
so
you
I
saying
have to just say Jack's laugh there was so good.
Yeah.
His little laugh. That is so,
boy,
sound like an evil villain.
It is, all of it is, right? Like, where is the line? Like, you're just saying the egregious absolute statement is the line that he crossed. Like,
I'm
is
asking,
it normally like,
guys,
what's the history of his, no. I mean, he could say whatever he wants.
Okay. Now I want to dig into this. So now let's talk about the tweet. It sounds like this. Bilal was like, ooh, I want to click on this. Jack says, is this a...
to be fair, I did not click on it and I have not watched the video. So I want to put that out there because that is also showing me your actions versus what you say as we talked about. Yeah.
And Jack's saying, did he not trash your car? He did. He has a auto-focused review channel and he did the Fisker Ocean car. And he said, this is the worst car I've ever reviewed. To Jack's point, one of the top comments on his Humane AI pin review right now is, this is MKBHD's villain turn. Like, he's gone full. Okay, so that's what they're saying. But Jack, again, when I asked Jack a very pointed question, I'm like, did he cross the line? Jack said no. And this is what I want to address. We know what YouTube is. We joke about it on this podcast a lot. This is just table stakes on YouTube now, right?
I mean, it's just media forever. Like, the fact that people lose their minds over this, it's like, I imagine 9 out of 10 people think that product is shit. Like, I don't think he's coming out and like trying to destroy the company or something.
It's not
like you're trying to do some paradigm shifting thing, what you expect everybody to. It's like you put a movie out there, anybody can watch it and write a review of it. You put a tweet out there, anybody can call you a moron on Twitter if you do it. Like, he's earned his platform by presumably giving honest review or giving his opinion on the stuff. People are tuning in for his opinion, and then I don't know, getting upset that he has a reputation and he put his reputation on the line for this. I imagine anybody who experiences that car or use that product, other than the people that are developing them, that obviously it's a kick in the nuts if you're like trying to do something like that and you get a bad review that reaches people. But in a way, it's just accelerating the feedback that you need to hear anyway. I think there's like maybe exceptions to the rule where like a bad review is like tainting but my memory of that product coming out initially was like very mixed feedback to it, even conceptually. Like, people just looking at the picture of it and looking at the like,
it was pretty negative
presentation of it, and just being like, yeah, you're right. It's like, it wasn't this like highly celebrated thing, and I do think there is an aspect of objective truth to this stuff too. Like, if you came out and said the iPhone is, say Mr. Beast came out and said the iPhone is the worst piece of shit product I've ever used, everybody in the world be like, that's wrong. You're wrong. It's an incredible product.
You nailed it. Is MKBHD lying? If he is, it'll be proven in the market, right? And he'll look like an asshat for this review. Yeah, there it is. I mean, that's it. I love how Jack walked through the idea maze. And he's just like, it's very simple. If MKBHD, and you mentioned it, he put his reputation on the line. He does every single video. He's putting his reputation on the line, right? And this is a lot of people building up their own brand, which we should talk about separately. But it's just the idea. He put his own reputation on the line. If he's wrong, it's like Jack said, there'll be 1 million people wearing AI pins being like, this is the greatest product ever. I will never take credence or listen to another MKBHD review again, right? Like, he's putting his skin in the game every time he puts up a video.
Well, can I just add, Trunk? So I agree with what you're both saying. So I think he's given an honest review. I guess the people on the other side, which is not really what I believe, but I'm just sharing the thought, which I think is because he's become such a powerful person essentially, and he's earned that 100%, and he's not doing anything wrong in my opinion. But there is an element of, before something even has a chance to get out there for people to even try, whether it was the Humane chip, or let's use another example. Let's say it was the iPhone before lots of people had an iPhone, or the iPod or whatever, and there was equivalent of this before it actually got really good. Or maybe iPhone's not a good example, but something like that. You could say that someone like him has, by having this kind of incentive on YouTube, which I actually think the review was probably a lot more balanced without me even watching
watched it. Yeah, it's a very balanced review.
But like, you're a writer. Like 90% of people just read the headline.
I see what you're getting. So let's read the tweet. Let's read the viral tweet. The super viral one that took over X. I find it distasteful, almost unethical to say this when you have 18 million subscribers. This is Daniel referring to the thumbnail specifically. Hard to explain why, but with great reach comes great responsibility. Potentially killing someone else's nascent project reeks of carelessness. First, do no harm. Now, I'd say a couple things here. Bilal had actually basically summarized this Daniel's point.
Just to clarify, I disagree with, but
yeah, I'm not saying you agree with it. Yeah, but like that I'd say 10% of people from what I read agree with him. 90% is kind of like Jack's take. Is like Marquez has earned his right to make it, and he's putting his own reputation on the line. Now, what I'll add to Bilal's point is this. Bilal, you naming the headline is very interesting, because when Daniel just started getting roasted for his take, he actually started replying to a lot of people with what Marquez actually wrote on X. So Marquez's X title was not the worst product I've ever reviewed.
Yeah.
Marquez came in with a very different title. Marquez says, Humane Pin, a victim of its future ambition. Okay? So that is a different title. And in the review itself, which I did watch, he even said I had another title for this video. So the thing I'd want to tease out and ask you guys, and again, I like how Bilal said it. Bilal saying, I'm not agreeing with this. I'm just telling you guys what it is. I'm insane. I see what the other argument is, but let's just walk through this question. What is the ethics of an argument? I mean, of a review or a critic? And I would say, did MKBHD lie? So the worst part of a clickbait headline is when it misinterprets a story, right? Which often happens with the mainstream media, where they'll actually misinterpret what is in the article. Clearly, for MKBHD, you can't tell him that he's lying about this being the worst product he's ever reviewed, right? I mean, it's literally his own perception, and who can tell MKBHD he's lying? That's what I'm saying.
I guess Trung, so you're right. I think to add a little bit more, another layer to this, I think it's worth us teasing out the difference between his YouTube headline, specifically in the thumbnail, versus the Twitter, because I don't think, first of all, to clarify, I don't think it's immoral. Like, he can do what he wants, right? Like, he's allowed to say what he wants. People like me who just read it and didn't even watch it, I can't even really have an opinion on it. I can't criticize him without even listening to it. But at the same time, I actually think this is a bigger problem, becoming an even bigger problem, specifically on YouTube. Because if you just see, all of YouTube is filled with these kind of like sensationalist, the typical like thumbnail, the YouTube face, the kind of like crazy stuff you see on there. And it's interesting that on Twitter, he didn't use exactly the same thing. And so again, like what Jack just said there about the engagement bait thing, this is about incentives, right? Like the YouTube algorithm incentivizes you to create stuff that everyone makes this annoying stuff. We don't really do it. Mainly because we just don't put time and effort into it. Not because we're like morally above it or anything like that. Like, I'm happy to make a YouTube face if you want me to.
We joked about it a lot. Well, Jack's done it with my face in the past to great effect, and I've been like,
with the TikTok one. Yeah.
But the point, one, man. That's Patreon the point is, level.
Yeah. But I would just to summarize what I was saying, I don't think, again, it's immoral. I just think it is a bit of a weird place we're getting to. And actually, this will bleed into the next topic about Airchat, which we'll come to in a second. But one of the kind of criticisms I have with all short form stuff, and YouTube is slightly medium form, right? Slightly longer. But I'm talking about the headline and the thumbnail is very short. And most people are only going to read that. Most people are only going to read a tweet. And Airchat's case, they're going to listen to a 20-second summary of something. And that's why, not to bang on about it over and over again, why I love long form, which only 1/10 of the population is going to even listen to, is because you actually get to talk about the nuance of it and have an honest discussion. And none of those platforms incentivize that, because human attention goes to these extremes. Am I on this side or am I on this side? Is it right? Is it wrong? And the truth is, it's obviously somewhere in the middle. So yeah, that's kind of my only other thought to add on it. But yeah, keep saying what you were going to say.
Jack, do you have anything to jump on what Bilal said there?
No.
Yeah, the last thing I'd say is ultimately his responsibility is just on, the consumer, right? Is like the viewer is who he's responsible. He's not responsible to these companies.
That's true.
Actually,
it's also fun. I guess the one thing I would say is like, it's our little like echo chamber corner of technology, Twitter addicted. Like the average person is like, what the why do you why do you care about this at all? Like, yeah, somebody launched a mega ambitious product, and guess what? It fell way short of how they pitched it. Wow. Most fucking compelling story ever.
Yeah, never heard that story before. Yeah. Right, yeah.
And now like, I don't know, man. It, like, just looking at the Twitter feed of how much effort and energy went into talking about that is just
Jack's
bonkers to me, man.
It feels a bit like the Fahrenheit Celsius thing that's been going on too.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen, but it sounds
was that Mark
similar.
Andreessen or someone? Trung, do you know the history of this? The last week, there was a whole discussion about Americans who like Fahrenheit and the rest of the world use Celsius, and it was like WhatsApp versus iMessage. It was this big discussion in a way, and it's just such a stupid discussion because you're not going to convince anyone. It's such a stupid way of spending your time arguing with people on the internet over something that doesn't matter.
You're right.
But just to clarify, Celsius is 100 and 0. Like, it makes a bit more sense.
I'll leave this.
Well,
you know what?
Go on.
No, I was just going to say before Jack went all ham on Airchat, I just say John Fio made a great point, which we could throw it up. He just goes, listen, if a review is going to kill your product, that's just not going to make it, man. Like,
very simple. That's the succinct. That could have been the whole segment. Boys.
Yeah. There you go. It should have been a tweet. Who needs the podcast?
But to Jack's point, the guys that aren't in this echo chamber, they're literally just like, yeah, if a review is going to kill your product, then the product's just not going to make it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. The guy that like studies technology for a living can't see the upside in this. You're in trouble.
Yeah. I do think the funniest thing is that of all the people, MKBHD is actually probably the most reasonable one. So it's not like, anyway, we don't have to talk about it more, but anyway.
We just add this. Truly the last thing I'll say, MKBHD responded to that Daniel Vassell and said, we disagree on what my job is. That's it. Mic drop.
That's the mic drop. There you go.
And I've said the end of this segment 20 times out. You guys ever see Lord of the Rings, Return of the King? Do you guys remember the trilogy? The joke for that movie was the last hour of that movie was a bunch of like fake endings to just tie up all these ends. That's like me right now. Let me just add, MKBHD, after the whole car fiasco that Jack mentioned, he actually tweeted out and said, did a bad review kill the car or did a bad product kill the car, right? That's it. Yeah. Jack's like, there's somebody. Jack's like, we could have saved ourselves 20 minutes here.
Well, actually, I do have a way to extend the segment for another minute. You want to hear this?
Yes.
When people, and I'm not saying this is pure speculation on my part, disclaimer, right? When you start your career in this kind of field, you have to have relationships with these brands to please send me the product, please let me review it. And the vast majority of people are going to have like some favorable level of communication, which influences the way in which those reviews, that's just pure human,
reciprocity.
Yeah.
101.
Like, I'm a reviewer, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now this guy has ascended to the point where he does not have to appease or answer to or play favorites with, or like, the guy's made an incredible career, and I imagine is very is in a position to say whatever he wants about this stuff. Yeah, 100%. So that's like the truest review you can get. Yeah. And I think that other idea of, I worked for advertising agencies that would say, oh, we're going to get all the top YouTubers and invite them to this incredible experience where they get to do X and Y and Z, and then they're going to do a review on us. Yeah, they're not going to like you fly them out and like feeding them and housing them and giving them these incredible experiences. They get on YouTube and go, this was a piece of shit experience. I hated it. It's like, just again, the underlying incentive structure and his situation, you should be looking to someone like that for an honest review. You know, there's probably a Taleb chapter in there somewhere where it's like the guy that has nothing to lose is going to be the most honest.
I loved it. I love that Jack is saying this because now I'm jumping on Jack's thoughts, which were so brilliant.
One more thing.
I know. One more thing. We're bringing back to Apple. One more thing. I'll give you an example. When I was living in Vietnam, in my early days, I worked at a magazine. And I had never experienced this before. I had never done a food review or a write-up.
Were you writing for the magazine or what?
Yeah, I was writing for the magazine.
In Vietnam?
In Vietnam.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know
you will laugh. I had never experienced this, but I was told to go. I need you to run down this place called Mumtaz. It's an Indian restaurant that just opened in the backpacker area of Saigon. Go to Mumtaz. Right up, it's a new restaurant. I had never been to that experience before, but as Jack described, you think after they gave me butter chicken and garlic naan for free, I was gonna write a shitty
exactly,
bro? After that free meal, I was just so new and such a sucker. I'm like, this
still
is the
best Indian meal you've ever had.
That's the best Indian meal I've ever had in my life. Mumtaz. In the backpack in Pham Ngu Lao in Vietnam.
That's the way he says it,
dude.
Okay. Don't.
And let me add another thing. In the Chartered Financial Analyst exam, so a little CFA fan talk. I passed the test. I don't pay my dues because I don't give a shit about it. I don't give a shit about gatekeepers and their designations. Okay. CFA, I did for a long time, but I don't anymore. I'm not quite MKBHD levels. I'm transcended from having to pay my CFA dues. For people who don't know, 15% of the CFA curriculum is about ethics and the responsibilities of somebody that works in finance. They literally, one of the main questions is about what Jack had brought up is when do you have to declare or what can you accept as a broker or a research analyst? And in most financial institutions, if you get a gift of over $100, you have to declare it. And it's exactly for what Jack says. Dude, even a $50 gift, like me in this freaking Indian restaurant in Vietnam, has compromised me, right? It's influence 101, reciprocity. It's one of the
that's what I was saying, the book, yeah.
Yeah,
give him a gift.
Cialdini
Robert Cialdini or whatever his name
the
is,
Bible.
Yeah.
So, Jack, I love your segue. That was brilliant, man. And all I'll just say is that, yeah, MKBHD, if this is his bill turn, I don't care. This guy, what is his incentive? His incentive is not to lose his viewers by being dishonest.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. Just keeping it real. There we go.
Yeah, not
Amazing.
in the Chris Rock way, like real dumb, but actually keeping it real.
Yeah, keeping it real.
But all of that being said, if you own a sauna company or a camera company or a chair company, feel free to send us stuff, obviously. Mm-hmm. We will give a very honest review.
I will give a very... Do you know how aerodynamic my spine since I got this Herman Miller chair has been? No, go ahead.
You're sleeping well. You sleep. Are you a little taller now? You got like that posture's fixed up a little.
I sleep in the chair. No, go ahead. Let's go next segment.
So talking of which, let's talk about Airchat, boys. This is the latest and greatest in business tech and memes is what NI is about, obviously. And Jack, you've been all over the Airchat life. In the last week, it's really, I think it's opened up to the wider public. Invites. I've been using it. It's pretty fun to play around with. But you were on it from even before. And I think you know some of the founders as well. So why don't you tell us a bit about what Airchat is?
Well, my understanding is it's founded by Naval, remote friend of the pod, huge influence on my personal journey for sure. And Brian Norgard, who was the chief product officer at Tinder, who I actually found. He did an interview with Pomp like in maybe 2020, 2021. It's really good. I have to find the...
I think I've listened to it like back
That's
in the
how
day,
I discovered him. And then like I reached out to him and have been in touch with him for a few years since. Very... Yeah, just incredibly.
He knows how to make people swipe and click, is what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be up there with the most. That's like an incredibly influential piece of kit, right? And so Airchat, I think, is like philosophically very different from the existing array of social networks. It's like a totally different way of communicating, right? It's voice, but it's asynchronous voice. So you might have something analogous in, like, people compare it to Clubhouse or to Twitter Spaces, but that's
synchronous, that's live,
right? Basically. That's live, and similar to what we're doing here, except we're doing this on a delay. It's one stream of audio where people butt in and out, and like you bring people up and down on the stage. Whereas this is, you speak, you record a message, it translates it to text, posts it to the feed, and then anybody who's a consumer of the app sees the text and hears your voiceover as they're reading, and then you have the ability to respond in that thread. So it's kind of this mashup between Spaces or Clubhouse and something like Twitter, where you're putting these individual posts into the feed and people can respond in a thread.
Yeah, it's a really cool interface.
Yeah, when you're using it, it's like really. It's not very natural for me to speak that way, because every time you or every time you kind of change directions, I have the tendency to want to just delete the message and start again. So you kind of makes you pause and think about what you're going to say. It's obviously different ways people use it, but
what's the feedback been? Just guys hit me, because Jack Butcher, by the way, they did a mini viral loop where you hit the contact list, right? I got an invite from you. Also got one shout out friend of the pod, Rick Burton. I think he's on Airchat. I also got an invite from him. I didn't click through on either one. So what's feedback, Bilal?
That was a funny way of putting it. I have some feedback on it, and I've only been using for a week as well. So, but Jack, did you have anything else on that before I share some of those things? Or
no, I was gonna say just some of the patterns I think are cool in here. Is like it's just it's a little different, and you can just put it on. You can just have it on the desk, and it'll just like roll through the conversations too. And one of the ways that I've heard them refer to it is like you're like walking. It's like being in person at a house party or something, and like wandering into conversations as they're happening. So it's quite hard to. It's quite a difficult UX challenge to solve, but it seems like it's getting some good traction. And they've got that little viral loop where you get credit for inviting people too. So you're like, what's on the profile,
because it says on the profile invited by
Bilal.
Jack Butcher. Yeah. Okay.
And then when you're looking at the invite list, it's another interesting thing that they're able to do, because they have, I assume they have access to the phone book of the person who's using it. The list for invites is sorted by how many people they already know on the platform. So like Trung has 10 friends already on Farcaster, like it will be, Airchat, too many emerging social networks. Yeah. And then you just go through and like one click, bang, it goes out to the SMS, and then like incredibly smooth onboarding. I imagine like a massive influx of people, and now it's the retention game, right?
Yeah, and they also, I saw Naval posted, they're actually kind of pausing. They might have reopened it again, I'm not sure, in the last few days, but they actually paused getting more people on, because they want to make sure the people that are on it are having a good experience, etc. So it's actually quite a smart move. So thanks for the invite, Jack. I have been playing around with it. I haven't been posting like everything, because I haven't been posting on anything for ages, but I have been listening. And I will say, obviously, with my podcast hat on, audio person, like I already send a bunch of voice notes. I know like there's a whole debate of voice notes versus, like, a lot of people online are like, don't ever send me a voice note, which I completely understand. Like if a random person sent me a voice note, I'm probably not going to want to listen to it. It feels like a voicemail. However, there's people actually listening to this podcast that I speak to over voice notes, and we send each other 10, 15, 20-minute voice notes all the time, like for years. And I have
15-minute
on WhatsApp
notes?
Specifically. And that is because, you can put it on 2x speed. And
this is demented behavior, dude.
No, and what I'm going to say is the interesting thing for me is, obviously this is, like, most people might not do that, but there's actually a massive, part of the world population that does do this, specifically on WhatsApp. South America is massive, Asia, basically everywhere outside of the US. And so even when I was traveling in South America or Mexico, you'll just see by default so many people, like even the taxi driver, he would just like hold on to the thing and swipe it up and just be speaking. It'll be playing stuff back and forth to people. It's like the same way you see certain people will like by default just call people with FaceTime video. I don't know if you've seen that with people. Right, but like I don't do that, but I started seeing that.
Actually, I defaulted to FaceTime because of
with video.
My parent, just like
with your parents, which is great. It's amazing when you get used to doing it. But the reason I'm saying on the audio side, I think there's something really amazing with audio that you can't get over text, right? So there is something, even the short form version on Airchat is great because you kind of get that emotion, the richness of voice versus just a tweet. But my kind of summary of it so far has been, still very early. So any of these networks are only as good as the content being produced, obviously. And my kind of honest take is most people aren't great at making entertaining or interesting audio, right? Like there's a reason, like, that in anything actually, even Twitter, like Twitter is only good because there's people like you guys that are actually making banging tweets and threads and stuff. If it was just like random people just posting boring stuff, it wouldn't be good. So that takes time to get that level of people creating stuff and finding what the use cases actually are. So because kind of like Clubhouse, like when that really popped off, it's always the same. We talk about the innovator curve all the time. It's like the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority laggards. This is definitely still very much early adopters. So that is pretty much like tech people, friends of the founders, the
people
VCs.
that care about this MKBHD beef.
Exactly. But the point is, that the conversations I've seen on there at the moment are very much mostly about the platform, which always happens. Like Clubhouse, there were rooms around, what's the future of Clubhouse? And that was like every week there was stuff like that going on. As it broadened out, more people came on. Same thing happened with Twitter. I remember when I first started using Twitter, it was just tech people. And then I had the Arsenal website at the time. I was trying to get people to talk about Arsenal on there, but there just weren't enough people using it. Obviously, fast forward, now Twitter's used by everyone for everything, pretty much, for every category. So for me, this stuff, when you get the equivalent of like the Vine people, you remember like the talented people who came and made funny, interesting videos in 6 seconds, but you get that for something like this, or you get like funny people is always a good category, obviously, because like I saw a few like shit posts on there, which were actually pretty jokes. So I think that stuff will be really interesting, but specifically around topics. So they do have these kind of like, I don't know what they call them, but you can follow a topic. So there's like a Bitcoin channel or whatever community. There's creators, all this sort of stuff. So that is quite interesting because it's an interesting way of taking in stuff. But for me personally, what I would love is like an Arsenal channel when in the future there's people using it after the game. Right now I go on YouTube and I watch Arsenal Fan TV and I watch all these, and I'm normally listening to it while I'm walking, and I'm like, there's a live reaction podcast I listen to straight away. So that sort of stuff I could see really working well for something, like a stream of tweets equivalent.
Let me actually tease this out. So I got a couple questions for you guys, building on what Bilal said. So Bilal, I actually have a very specific question on that because I know you listen to podcasts and do long walks. So before I ask you where you potentially see this, I just want to throw 2 high overarching notes that I saw regarding this and you guys' thoughts on it. So the thesis that I saw around this thesis, fucking such a jackass. No, but the thing I saw was like, you can talk faster than you can write, but then when it comes the other way for taking in
read faster than you can
read faster than you can take audio, right? That was like, so the beauty about Airchat from a lot of the usage write-ups I saw was like, because of the audio transcription, this is a very cool use case of AI, right? Like a speech to text. So you get that benefit where you get both sides of that equation. And then the other thing that Naval had mentioned was the voice part, Bilal, you had mentioned the word nuance, is like when you hear people's intonations and their emotions, it's a little bit harder to shit on someone and dunk on someone if you're hearing their voice, right? Versus just text, because text is so it takes away all the. That's why it's so easy to shit people in text and email, right? Completely. It's because you're taking away the human element of hearing.
Or so like I think that was part of it. Or like that. Yeah, I can see.
So
that.
do you guys see specifically to that question? Do you see this as a mediating presence of just like shitting on people, making it a little bit nicer? Like, would that kind of work?
I mean, I think that's part of their stated goals too. Is like more civilized conversation happening at scale, which, I mean, in the street, in person, like, it's very rare that you get into a altercation verbally. But if you go on Twitter, you watch like
instant,
literally every other exchange is hostile.
I would slightly disagree, just because I think it's a small group right now. I think when it grows, like Clubhouse had the same.
There'll be an incentive to come in there and be a prick soon enough.
Yeah, well, as soon as people start talking about politics, or they talk, like even this weekend, I saw people talking about the war stuff, and like I didn't follow it enough to see, but at some point there's going to be some disagreement, and so I don't think that. I do think it's harder to be a prick essentially with voice versus a tweet. But I do think people, when they're behind a screen, either way, they can be not as nice. So in person, it's harder to be not so nice. So I think that's also a scaling thing as it gets bigger. Like Clubhouse had the same. I remember in the beginning, everyone's like, oh, wow, we're getting to speak to all these interesting people. And then give it a few weeks, everyone's shouting. There were people just shouting at each other in like a certain room. And so that I think is more about population size of a network. That's fair. And the other phrase I had written down here was, like LinkedIn voice. I personally felt there was a lot of like LinkedIn voice for a lot of people, or like professional voice, like the way
self-censorship vibe.
Yeah, it's like when you're going to speak on a stage in front of a bunch of people, which is basically what you're doing there, right? You're putting a voice out. Even me recording "Hello World" or something, if I wanted to put that on there. There is a certain voice that people use.
You're anticipating the listener. Yeah,
exactly. You're like,
way.
You don't know. You don't speak like you're speaking to a friend just yet. That's why I was using the voice note example, because personally, I think that's an interesting area, because like I said, millions of people are already doing that. And the reason it's interesting, regardless of the length, because I don't think length was really the point here about short or long. The reason I want to specifically say the voice note thing, because a lot of people are like, what the hell, why are you sending that long messages? One, because when I have a phone call with my friend, I speak for like an hour, often 30 minutes, an hour, right? So when I send it 10, we found like the 20 minutes was the highest you can really do. After that, it's really hard to follow and stuff.
Wait, hold on a second. This is interesting. So you're saying that, how many have you sent?
Oh, like I've been doing since the pandemic. So I'd say probably like 5 to 7 of my closest friends. And the main reason is because we're all in different time zones. Most of them have kids, right? And so I'll go on a walk and I can listen to it. One of my friends, he's probably listening to this right now at work. He'll listen, he's doing other stuff, or he's at the gym. He'll listen to it. And then what we do is, it's actually perfect for, so I've been saying for ages, like, it'll be great to have a better product for this, is that we basically write notes. Like we'll write like little bullet points that we're going to respond to. So like in a response, I'll hear him say, oh, Arsenal did this, and oh, this happened with my girlfriend, this, blah, blah, blah. And I'll just quickly write blah, blah, blah. And then I press send. And when I go to record it, I just swipe up and I can see all the things I put.
Dude, are like, you should be the CPO for Airchat. You thought about this, man.
No, I thought a lot about like voice specific, because like I'm saying, like another parallel to or data point, I forgot the exact number, but I was listening to the Instagram head of product recently. They said that DMs are by far the biggest.
Adam Mosseri on the Rick Rubin podcast?
Yeah, they were talking about how much what they use in Instagram. Like, I hardly post anything on Instagram, but I send DMs every day because I'm sending a funny post to someone, or I'm going back and forth with someone. So there's this, that's the real social network, is what he was saying.
It's the messaging. So tell me about the 20 minutes. Why, how did you guys?
And it isn't always that. Sometimes it can be 5-10 minutes or whatever, but it's more like, instead of a call, because we all end up being busy. We can't, everyone's like, oh, let's jump on a call, but no one has time to do that. Like, specifically with the time zones. And again, that might be me because I'm a Brit living in the States, but even here, I have friends who live on the West Coast. So they'll say, oh, well, I'm not free during the day at the same time you are, but when I go out for a walk, I'm going to send a little 5-10 minute note to you. So that's kind of how we do it. It's been very, very useful. And then specifically, the funny one is that on the sports side, every Arsenal game, that's one of my friends. every time the game finishes, we send each other like 3 to 5 minutes, like whatever. We're like, oh, that was really interesting. That happened here, blah, blah, blah.
Yo, Bilal, this is you should be working for Airchat, bro.
Well, the thing is, I don't know that is a very different interface and value proposition. And so one of the things Naval actually said, which I kind of disagree with, and again, obviously Naval, a genius guy, love his stuff, but he said he thinks, I can't remember the exact phrase, but he basically said Airchat will replace podcasts. And so to a certain extent, I can see what he's saying. Like I was listening to a feed of Airchats that could replace a podcast in a way. But I don't think it doesn't have to be either or, obviously. And I think what a lot of people don't, or my opinion on podcasts is what makes them magical is the fact that they are deep and that you get this nuance and you get a conversation really going. And whether that's audio or text, I don't think it's about necessarily audio or text. It's about the ability to go deep and talk about things.
Can you tease that out then? Because you had mentioned something earlier where you were walking and you can listen through the feed. Would you do that for 45 minutes, listening to random people talk, or would you rather have a podcast? Let's address.
Yeah, I personally would probably prefer a podcast because even then there's lots of shit podcasts. So similarly, when you go on a social network, there's probably lots of shit voice notes as well. Now, in the future, when it's ranked better and there's more content, it'll be like a YouTube feed maybe, right? So maybe it'll be like a YouTube audio thing. So that might make more sense. And so when I personally went on it, there wasn't enough to keep me that engaged, but it was a cool interface and I liked the potential of it. But I'm saying at the moment, the content wasn't doing it for me, but maybe that's just my interest.
And so I got a question for both of you then. I would like for Jack to answer that podcast question that we just posed. Can this replace podcasts in any capacity? Second question, why can't X/Twitter just copy this? So please explain those two things to me.
Good question.
I think I agree with Bilal on the different formats will always be, they'll always have different, it will feel different to record and listen to things that are made under different circumstances, right? That just feels like us having this conversation. If we knew that there were people listening along to it in real time, we would speak probably differently, or it's just different environment. And I think people who are really good at articulating their thoughts verbally probably have an incredible amount of bias towards this too.
Like
Naval is a perfect example of that. Yeah, like off the dome can riff about almost any like technical or scientific subject with a good degree of accuracy without umming and ahhing, and has probably a group of peers around him that come back at in the same quality or at the same level, which would distort potentially your ability to understand that most people don't find it natural to do that, or like to get critical mass of a social app, people communicating that way is maybe more difficult. And podcasts obviously allow for the edit, allow people to sit there for an hour, and a lot of podcasts are recorded in person. So that dynamic completely changes what you're getting on the audio track that is exported from that physical conversation, right? And the subject matter of some podcasts, like, comedy podcasts, for example, where you have guests in the same room, the inputs for that are so much more than just two people being able to speak back and forth to one another. So
it's the momentum as well, like in that scenario, right?
We love talking about momentum, boys.
It's the yes and of equivalent of like in improv or whatever. It's like someone makes a joke or you say something off the cuff, and that doesn't mean you can't do that in a fragmented way in these things. I just don't think you necessarily, obviously he's just putting out there, like I'm not saying he even stands by that forever.
But Daniel Vassallo is going to be tweeting about you tomorrow.
yeah.
You know what? Hey, I actually had one thought for going about MKBHD quickly, because now that Jack brought it up. The other thing that I forgot to add about Daniel Vassallo's tweet, we're talking about clickbait. He was putting a clickbait tweet. I don't even think he felt that.
That's true.
I guarantee you there's a 10%, I'm calling it 50-50, that he didn't even think it was unethical. He's just like, I'm going to take the other side of this trade and I'm going to go nuclear and get that juicy creator revenue.
Yeah, for real. Yo, Trung, I'm just going to say one last thing as well on what we were saying to what you said before. Like the one last point on the Naval thing about the podcast thing is that to me, it's like comparing a tweet summary of a book versus reading the book. Now, the key thing is there's lots of shit books too. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. And so sometimes the summary is great because I didn't need to read 10 hours worth of a book. But sometimes we all know great books where you're like, oh, you read the summary and you're like, okay, well, that person didn't truly understand. Like you don't get the nuance and the deep enjoyment of that book without reading the full thing. So that's why I don't think it's necessarily about saying this needs to replace this. And again, if you spoke to him for about this properly, I think he would, understand that. And I think what Jack said about Naval is actually a really good point because he's probably the best. If I could think of someone who can tweet with audio, it's probably Naval. Like he already does this with a podcast. That's his podcast. He does short podcasts. Even his two, in my opinion, the two best Naval podcasts was one on Joe Rogan and the Knowledge Project. They're two really, really good ones. Oh, yeah.
Scott Adams. He had a really good one with Scott Adams.
Okay. I don't know even if I heard that one. But again, if you break that up, that's like 2-3 hours or hour, 2-3 hours of conversation. But you could probably slice that up into equivalent of tweets or audio tweets because that's the way he thinks. And he has these beautiful one-liners that really hit. But again, that's not like
Shout
everyone.
out to a boy, Eric Jorgo.
There we go.
Exactly. The Almanac.
Friend of the pod, actual friend of the pod.
Dude, I just saw he posted a number. They've sold 1 million copies of Naval. That is it. Dude, shut up.
People don't realize how much that is for a book. That is absolutely wild.
Insane for a book. And dude, it's free online too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So to what Bilal said, did you guys, Jack, did you actually answer the Twitter question? Did you? Because I think you said,
oh, can Twitter rip it off?
Yeah.
It's a good
I don't think so. I think it's like the one feature filters the user base for a different type of person, maybe, like in the same way that like these digital environments have like their own culture. And I think you can copy the feature, but you can't copy the culture of the place. Like TikTok, Instagram,
Threads
they could ship the
as an
exact
example
same.
for X, right? Yeah.
Okay. I think it's like it's almost an organic process that is way outside of just the ability to facilitate whatever the exchange or interaction is. So will it copy some of the features? I think Twitter already did this. I think you can like post a voice note, right?
They don't auto transcribe though, which would be interesting to see. You can't post.
It would be trivial, I would think, right? Like they're probably
they're going to roll it out. There's
transcribing quotes just to get more shit on the network. Like I think that's probably the macro objective there, right? It's like how do you lessen the friction between an idea and a tweet? Speech for some people that's the absolute opposite. It's like as soon as you ask somebody to speak, they freeze. And maybe the reason Twitter blew up the way it did is because you can just type and this is maybe an edge case, maybe not, but I can't really use those kinds of things that much because of the noise. Like if you have kids running around or if like
it's another good point,
like that the amount that it compresses like the time that you get to use it. Most people like sitting at work, dicking around on Twitter and stuff like that. You can't be doing that on voice only networks.
The TAM is way smaller actually.
But that's why comparing it to podcasts is interesting because that's the opposite of podcasts, though they're both audio. The reason podcasts blew up is because people choose one podcast, know it's going to be good, listen to it for an hour or two while going to the gym, going for a walk, etc. If I had to be active on my phone, like you said, passive versus active, I'm on my phone like tapping away. That's a different experience. And like you said, the time of day that I have to do that is very different. And so it doesn't even replace Twitter time. Like if you think of a chart of time spent, you're reading Twitter while you're on the toilet seat, right? Yeah. Or you're on the train. You can't, without headphones, you can't do that on
actually, Bilal, you brought up a great point though.
In the same way.
Bilal, exactly. You brought up a great point though. It's that pie of time for people like us, because I listen to a ton of podcasts too. Am I going to attribute some of that pie of time to Airchat, which I might, right? Let's say they get what you kind of mentioned, really good at aggregating it for you, right? They're like, hey, we just put together 20 minutes of audio content about Arsenal that you think you'll love. And like, if they got really good at that, I think
that would be great.
it
would be kind of like YouTube. That's why, like, I mean, again, not like lots of people had this idea. I have a whole note written about Twitter for voice. Like, for ages, I've thought about something like that. So as lots of people. So I definitely think or YouTube for audio only. Like, that's another thing. Which again, like YouTube kind of is that if you have background play, but most people don't have that.
It's worth $20 a month, to be honest. Background play. I just want to say one thing that you brought up, Bilal. Actually, both of you guys brought up about the type of people that talk on Airchat. I think what we're going to discover with Airchat, and this is my bear case for it. I haven't used it at all. I hope it does well. I like the idea behind it, especially the not dunking on people. People just lack so much riz. Like the lack of riz. Dude, audio is different than TikTok, right? Because people start recording, and listen, if you're an attractive female on TikTok or Instagram, it doesn't matter. You don't need riz, right? Same with dudes. Some dudes are just good looking cats, and the need for like verbal riz is much less. But if you can't lean on your looks and you got to be verbally rizzy, that TAM is not
Rizzy,
big,
it's
man.
funny. No, you're right. Well, also Trunk specifically with Twitter, like, and again, I'm just saying this as someone, like, I'm not shitting on anyone here. A lot of the funniest Twitter accounts, and you know half of these people because you're one of them.
You meet them in real life, they got zero riz.
That's what I'm saying. And so, like, that's why I said the LinkedIn voice, because it's also the writing voice versus the speaking voice. And sometimes someone's an incredibly funny writer, but they're not a funny speaker, and vice versa too. Though maybe I think if you can write the way you speak and you're funny, you could probably do both. But so that's why I specifically said the Vine.
Yeah,
that's why I used the Vine example, because Vine people, it brought out this creativity of like random people being like, I'm going to find a way to make something funny in 6 seconds or entertaining. So that's why I wouldn't judge it. Yeah, I do love what they're trying to do. I think it's a cool idea. I hope it works, and I'm not going to keep using it. But that was kind of the thing. The last thing, I know I've said about the voice note multiple times, but I know lots of people are going to hear this and say, that's so weird you listen to 20 minutes worth of stuff. All I'd say is, if you haven't ever tried it, try it out with some friends that you would like to stay in touch with more. Because all my friends who've just had kids, like, they're the ones mostly that I speak to. And it's been amazing. Like, we've literally been sending each other stuff, sharing stuff, like in all transparency, like pretty deep stuff, that bad stuff that's happened to both of us, and like stuff we wouldn't be able to do over text. And that has been incredibly helpful for all of us involved. And so like the when you send a message to a friend, you say, how are you? Like, does anyone ever tell you what's really going on? Or like, oh yeah, I just had this thing with my wife and I had this thing, or I like finally got to go to this holiday that went on.
What is really going on?
Yeah, no one's really telling you anything over text.
Feeling?
You get what I mean? So that's why I do think there's added benefit of trying that out. But yeah, it's not for everyone anyway. All right, boys, I think we did a good job on that one. You want to talk about Bluey? What the hell is Bluey? Enlighten us.
Okay, so we gotta fast forward here because I know Jack's got a boogie. So let's just say now we're gonna do the AMA next week. Thank you for people. We're backed up on AMAs here. We're gonna do them. Thank you everyone for submitting their questions. Bluey is an Australian TV kids show. And I know people are looking askance, and Bilal's like, what the hell is Bluey? Bilal, Bluey is the second most watched stream show in 2023. Like, wrap your head around that, bro.
What's number one?
Suits.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Wow. It blew up on Netflix.
Is that Meghan Markle's in that one? Yeah,
yes, Meghan Markle. For people that don't know about Bluey, legendary kids show. You've probably seen
Jack's. Well, let me do a wide shot here just so we can get Jack's reaction, my reaction as well. Because say that again, Tron. Go and Bluey.
Legendary kids show, man. Let me pull up the. Let me just show you guys what they look like.
Jack's like, no, my kids literally do not watch any. We don't even own the TV.
I actually want to ask Jack about that. So Bluey is dude, it's so legendary. I'll just give you guys a visual here, so we can be on the same page. Okay, this is what Bluey looks like. You guys see that? There's Bluey.
Yeah.
Bluey's, for listeners, I'm circling. Bluey's a female young girl dog, 7 years old. Her sister Bingo is 5. Her dad Bandit and her mom is Chili. They are the Healer family. So this is one of the biggest Australian cultural exports since Crocodile Dundee, Kylie Minogue. Oh, how money's Kylie Minogue, by the way?
Yeah, Kylie Minogue, yeah. Wait, Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie, yes.
And Neighbors.
Aussie. We're talking about Aussie exports. So Men at Work.
And flower shirts.
The song Down Under. Yeah, flower shirts.
So
funny enough, but Australia, I went there the first time. We got a Nguyen, which is a popular Vietnamese last name. It's the third most popular last name in Melbourne. That's how many Vietnamese.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
damn.
But also they're known to be
close, as in probably 8 hours away, but close compared to
it's 10 hours away from Vietnam. But they're in the drug trade. I mean, there are a lot of Vietnamese. I'm not saying all of them, but the reason I say this is because
I said flower shirt, so you're right. Yeah.
No, I will say this though. I'm not saying all Vietnamese people in Australia are involved in it. Of course not. But there is a bit of a reputation. The first time I flew in to Sydney, you bet your ass I got harassed by multiple agents, border patrol agents at the Sydney airport. So anyways, all that.
They take you to the Mohammed room or what? How bad was it?
No,
they take you to that extra room?
They didn't take me, but they inspected my bag multiple times.
Okay,
but anyways, Bluey, for people who don't know, it's the second most popular show, any show in the world last year. 7-minute long episodes. There's been 150 of them. But since Jack's never seen it, I'm more interested in talking about Jack and his kids' TV viewing habits at this point. Go watch Bluey, people. The segment's a lot less interesting knowing that Jack doesn't watch it, but it's made by a single individual named Joe Brum. Joe used to work on a show called Peppa Pig, which are you guys familiar with Peppa Pig?
Yeah, know about it.
Yeah. Peppa Pig, huge property, sold for $5 billion.
I thought it was British.
No, that's English. That is British.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So Joe worked on Peppa Pig. Yeah, exactly.
Legend.
So Peppa sold for $5 billion to Hasbro.
Sorry. Trying telling a real serious breakdown. That would be an absolute dick. Sorry.
No, we don't have to go into the breakdown. It's fine.
Go for it.
No, because I actually just want to ask Jack. This is interesting. So my rule around video is my son gets 30 to 40 minutes a day. That's it. But it sounds like that's a lot for Jack. So Jack, tell me, in your household, the iPad TV rules.
No iPad, no TV.
Wow. Seriously. None. Your kids never seen YouTube.
The only time the TV is on in our house is like watching football. I'm watching football on the weekend, maybe.
And this is a very, this is an explicit decision made by you and Celia. No screens.
Yes.
Talk us through this decision.
No, that's how hard respect that you're able to implement that and keep it. Wait, so are you able to say on here how old the kids are? We can.
No. We don't need to talk about that.
No, I mean,
young. Okay. They're young.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say before, like when they're getting a little bit older, it might become harder without me knowing.
What are the rules?
The kids.
What are the rules?
I just told you the rule is none, 0.
No, but for how long?
Oh, right. That hasn't been discussed.
Oh, okay.
It's just indefinitely at this point.
What was the decision that went behind this that you guys made?
Just because, like, you sort of see, or the thing you're trying to avoid is using that as a coping mechanism or a thing that like becomes a like, I need to do that to calm down, or like that becomes some requirement.
You don't want to crutch. You don't want to crutch, right?
Yeah, and it's not easy. Like there's obviously benefits to be had from like, hey, sit still and watch that and be entertained. And this is not me even criticizing that approach. And Celia is like more spends way more time in the driving seat of parenthood than I do, and that's a conscious decision that she is like, I'm happy to like enforce that long term, which is
mad respect, man.
Yeah, hard. And I think it's like a lot of stuff now I look at it with like, you look at certain stuff on TV and you're like, wow, as a like tiny kid, like some of the concepts you're getting shown at a young age is like, at what point does it make sense, or what point do you have the like vocabulary to even be able to explain or discuss that with your parent versus like being exposed? And you could be obviously careful about what you show kids and stuff, but like letting them loose on the YouTube algorithm unsupervised, for example, is like never. Like that's it's
insane. Yes, it is insane. to do that.
No.
Is it even on YouTube Kids? Have you ever tried
it? No, it is on YouTube. They have clips, but I think what Jack...
No, I'm saying on YouTube Kids, they've got a whole app
they have a whole app just
But is that still dangerous for you? Like, do you find it still...
No one uses YouTube Kids. That's the reality.
Really?
Everyone...
I have quite a few friends that do, but also probably some Google bias.
YouTube Kids.
But yeah.
No, but this is what... Jack, everything you're saying, I agree with. Everything you're saying right is I cannot... You might be the first family I know to enforce that. I am very impressed. Like I'm legitimately impressed.
Well, Celia,
you want to say real quick,
YouTube Kids has
2.6 million reviews on App Store.
I don't buy it. I don't buy that, man. I downloaded it. I'm just telling you, it's just for simplicity and it's simplicity's sake, right? What is convenient? I know a lot of parents are lazy. I'm between bad, like I would, again, not judging, not calling bad parenting. I know parenting's hard. I know digital babysitters are necessary for a lot of caregivers. It's hard, right? Being a parent is hard. I get that. I'll tell you my experience. Before I had a kid, I would walk into a restaurant, and when I saw a parent giving their kid an iPhone, I never had a kid. I would be judgmental. I'd be like, well, this is awful parenting. A month into me being a parent, I was telling my wife, we didn't give my kid an iPhone in a month. But I'm like, there's no way I can be no screen. Like I cannot believe Jack and Celia are no screen. That is extremely impressive. So Jack, whatever you're willing to share, how does Celia enforce it? What did she do instead? Like, I'm actually curious.
Well, they just don't want it. They just don't know to ask for it. Like they don't.
So what do they do?
Go up, even if you play with toys, read books.
Dude, you're
go
raising
outside,
run around.
Dude, relative to
that's amazing.
The rest of society, you're raising like Buddhist monks, which is impressive.
Yeah.
Because you guys know Jonathan Haidt just came out with a best-selling book, The Anxious Generation. We should talk about it.
I think we have a copy. I think we ordered one. We're gonna read. Yeah,
it's literally so. We'll talk about it more in a future episode. But to tease it, that book is literally about how phones are ruining children under the age of 18. And they're ruining social media and just always being online. And the big part of it is what Jack's saying is just what's the solution? Yeah, just what were they doing before phones? Social play, right?
But it's a hyper luxury thing. I'll acknowledge that too. It's like it's like this weird paradox of being incredibly hard, but also like having the opportunity to have enough time and be the primary presence around your kid allows you to moderate that completely, right?
No, you're right. But I will say, I know a lot of people that might be quote unquote in this that have this luxury that aren't doing it. It is a huge responsibility.
It's like go to a restaurant or something and like someone's having a bad time. It's like, this sucks. Like you probably could say, hey, here's Bob the Builder, relax. But instead it's like a full-on negotiation of like, hey, we don't behave this way in like anywhere, but especially not here, blah 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 blah. It's hard, man.
I respect this.
No, that's discipline. Yeah,
this is discipline. So I'll say the last thing, and this is kind of a pitch to Celia, but it's going to go on deaf ears. I was just going to say, when Jack said you don't want to let your kids loose in the YouTube algorithm, totally agreed. There's been, Bilal, you might remember this. There's a whole famous thing with YouTube, Elsa Gate, right, where people were basically hacking the algorithm by creating automated cartoons, and some of these cartoons would have like Spider-Man without a head, but it was working because that's what kid wants to watch. Do not let your kid on the YouTube algorithm. Agreed. But why Bluey is so great is so Joe Broom is the sole creator of this, and he wanted to create something that parents could watch with their kids. Again, parents watching with some of their kids is better than YouTube, but it's not better than what Jack said, which is playing with your kids, right? So last thing I'll say is this. There's an episode of Bluey where it's hungover parenting. And that's the thing that sold me. The hungover parenting is such a niche thing that they nailed it. And I'm like, this is great content. It's like Kobeing. But anyways, I know Jack's got a boogie. And guys, great episode. We'll do the MA next week.
Yeah, great. Also, just to clarify, I did look it up. YouTube Kids specifically has 35 million weekly viewers. And I'm just saying, because I remember it being the Elsa Gate, all that stuff. And they consciously pushed it. And it was... I remember seeing the numbers internally; it was pretty high. So just wanted to say,
okay, I'm not going to hate you.
And even my sister, who's not a tech person or anything, she uses it, and they're like, oh yeah, it filters out a lot of the bad stuff. So maybe try it out if you haven't.
Okay, I gotta give it
anyway,
another
great episode, boys. Thanks for that, Trunk. I know we didn't get to do the full breakdown, but definitely go check out your newsletter where you wrote about it as well. Was it readtrunk.com, yeah?
Readtrunk.com.
Readtrunk.com. Thanks everyone for being here and rocking with us for 3 more years. Here's to what's your boy say? 1,000 more? What have we said?
Dave Senra. Yeah.
1 down.
327 down. 1,000 more to go.
Yeah.
Dude,
well, we're on 161, so we'll get there as well. But yeah, very much a pleasure,
out
boys.
To our boy Senra,
see you boys again next week. Cheers. Thanks for listening.
Peace.